Welcome to the WOVA Circle, real talk on fertility, wellness, and trying to conceive. I'm Gabie Peytchev, founder of WOVA Health and fertility educator. This podcast is your community space for navigating the path to parenthood with evidence based insights, authentic conversations, and genuine support. I'm dedicated to being here with you through every part of your journey. Today's guest is Dr. Cyntia Brown, a pharmacologist and clinical researcher with over 13 years of training and expertise. She bridges the gap between science and holistic care, helping women prepare their bodies for conception in the safest and most effective way. Dr. Cyntia specializes in understanding how medications and supplements interact, ensuring fertility support is personalized to each woman's unique genetics and metabolism. Her mission is to empower women with both knowledge and practical tools so they can make confident decisions on their fertility journey. Welcome, Dr. Brown.
Hi.
Did I miss anything in my introduction?
No, it was very flattering. Thank you. I'm a pharmacist by trade and I am a clinical pharmacologist. So I definitely understand how drugs that we're taking, whether it's supplements or fertility medications, interact with everything from your genes and the cells in your body and how they help to move us towards our goals of better health.
Amazing. Can you share a little bit about your journey? What inspired you to get into that field?
Actually, it's because I was bad at other parts of pharmacy. I did not enjoy retail pharmacy, did not enjoy being in a hospital all day. And I had a really great mentor that encouraged me to go into big pharma and get some training on how we can implement what I'm learning in pharmacy school at a larger scale. I had that great mentor who saw that I was really interested in laboratory sciences. I was really interested in experimentation and encouraged me down this kind of alternative path for pharmacists. So I went from there, I did my postdoc at IU, School of Medicine, and I was able to learn clinical pharmacology there and then entered big pharma from there.
Nice. So you found your calling, you're helping women maximize their health so they can get pregnant and they can have healthier children.
Yeah, that is definitely a personal journey of mine because I had some fertility bumps in my road to motherhood. So, because I experienced all of these things kind of on my own, navigating the healthcare system, even as someone who's part of the healthcare system, I was still kind of getting jerked around, quite frankly. And this really drove me to want to advocate for other women, people who might not know that there are other options or know that they're being treated as just kind of a regular case. I really try and emphasize the importance of individualized and personalized medicine and advocating for you on a personal level instead of just simply as another patient or client.
I love this. Thank you for doing what you're doing. I went through my infertility struggles also, saw how broken the system is. And it's amazing that people like you are trying to make a change and really pay attention to what's going on. Many
It's a team
people,
effort.
many people manage symptoms without ever addressing the root cause. And this is very common.
Yeah.
How do you approach
Yeah.
identifying the underlying drivers of hormone imbalances?
As you know, I deal with a lot of clients that have PCOS, and that core driver is like the insulin resistance that is fueling everything from the androgens to the physical symptoms that you see, like the excess weight gain and hair developing in places we don't want hair to be. I try to, number one, educate and empower and explain here is the underlying cause of all these other problems. Typically, when a client comes to me, they have a laundry list of here's what's bothering me, here's what I hate, here's how this is affecting me. And commonly, it can be isolated down to one or two core drivers or root causes that are expressing those number of symptoms you're describing. So explaining to them how if we can kind of nip it in the bud, it'll help eliminate those other problems as well, or at least help manage and reduce the burden. So I always, again, I'm treating everyone as their own individual case study. So looking at how their lifestyle or even cultural background race, or genetic backgrounds could be influencing the expression of the symptoms they're having today.
Can you talk a little bit more about this when it comes to genetics and the expression of the genes?
Yeah.
Many people don't understand like what
Yeah.
epigenetics is and how powerful this can be.
Yeah, it's a unique field, and honestly, like, epigenomics is, like, something that we covered in pharmacy school, and it's still not always, like, fully appreciated in the larger discussion, but I'll say, for instance, as we know, like, PCOS, we've seen that it's often driven by a number of genetic factors. Inherently, like, Black women carry some of those genes. That doesn't guarantee you'll have PCOS, but I try to explain to clients that your father and your mother can be carriers, and that could be contributing to how the PCOS is expressing in you, which is why you have a variety of expressions, right? You have lean PCOS, where someone who's very thin is having the same symptoms as a larger person that is a more conventional expression of PCOS. So no one case is the same. So if I know that, let's say that I had a client, I dealt with two sisters, one with PCOS, one without, but they had the same expression of symptoms, the same issues with weight gain, the same issues with their fertility, but one had a diagnosis and one did not. And I said, well, as you know, we diagnose based upon a triad of symptoms, right? But just because you don't meet the criteria to qualify for a diagnosis does not mean that there isn't something going on that is influencing the difficulty you're having. And it's very interesting to me that your sister has a confirmed diagnosis and you do not, yet you're having the exact same problems. They had the same parents, same father, and same mother. And that was a chance for us to discuss genes and how just because you don't fully express this gene that will give you the full blown diagnosing criteria does not mean you're not going to have some of these similar difficulties because you share a gene pool. I try to empower women that just because you don't have a confirmed diagnosis does not mean that something is not going on or that things are not influencing what you're seeing in your everyday life. Because I think at times we can be kind of gaslit and to say, well, yes, I know my sister has cysts and fibroids, and my mom does, and my aunt does, and my cousin does, but I don't. But I still feel XYZ. I still see XYZ. It's like, oh, there's something going on probably, and things that are motivating and feeding the likelihood of those members of your family having the symptoms, having the fibroids, the cysts, or whatever it might be, that perhaps your genes are a little bit different, but the core expression is still there. So let's look a little closer and see what's going on.
Yeah, and you talking about diagnosis in the book PCOS: The Hidden Epidemic by Samuel Tucker.
Mm,
You probably know that.
mm,
It talks about how it's often so undiagnosed. So why do you think it's
yeah.
missed so often? Is it because of what you just mentioned, like depending on how these symptoms show? Like what signs do you wish more clinicians picked up on early?
So I think I'm seeing a lot of, again, we have this misunderstanding about PCOS that you are going to be a larger set person, you're going to have acne, you're going to have like the worst case scenario of symptoms, which isn't always the case. So I think because we sometimes have very extreme ideas about what PCOS looks like, we don't seek, you think, oh, I'm not that bad. I can't fit this. And that isn't how medicine necessarily works. So I think one, breaking down the stigma and stereotypes of what it means to have. Number two, there is a real aversion to the healthcare system at large. So people are not seeking guidance or not seeking a diagnosis, I've noticed. And I would say three, right now, I see different numbers, but I think anywhere from 15 to 20% of women have PCOS, like a diagnosed case of PCOS. That number kind of changes based upon whatever study you're looking at, but that's a big chunk of women.
Mhm.
I've seen some other studies that showed 1 in 3 women with infertility have PCOS. Because a lot of women perhaps are not cognizant of this until they're trying to conceive, which is typically later on in their life, right? Maybe late 20s, 30s to 40s. So we're getting later and later diagnoses as well. We're kind of patchwork fixing things as needed along the way. Okay, I'm getting a little bigger. Oh, I'll do a weight loss, diet or drug. Oh, my blood sugar's a little high, or I'll cut back. And we kind of we're treating these symptoms as we're seeing them, instead of seeing, oh, there is a core underlying driver here that I need to address stronger. In my own practice, the number one thing I hear from women is because they're having issues conceiving, that ovulation support is not there. And the ovulation support, that is I think of it as kind of like the final boss of when your PCOS is so out of control and so unmanaged that your body stops ovulating and you stop producing healthy eggs. Then it's like, oh, I'm on fire. This is super crazy. And all these symptoms I've had for years are actually this. So I think we need to encourage that early intervention, encourage these conversations often and frequently, and bring it up to your practitioner. Say, hey, assess me for PCOS. And if I'm wrong, cool. But it's better to catch it the earlier you do so that you don't have those bigger problems downstream, whether it's diabetes or infertility.
Some people could have a regular period, but they might not be
Yes.
ovulating. How do you know if you're ovulating or not?
So, a normal, healthy woman, it is common to not ovulate every single cycle. I believe the data shows that within a 3 to 4 month cycle of a normal, healthy woman, one of those cycles she may not ovulate. That is not like a alarming, crazy thing. It's like, huh, okay, that's a little weird. Cool, let's try it next month. Nothing to be really scared about, right? However, with PCOS clients, one, they're having much longer drawn out cycles typically, if at all. These are lasting anywhere from 40, 70, 90 days at a time compared to a normal 28 to 33-day cycle. And secondly, they're having multiple reoccurring and ovulatory cycles. So, how do you know if you're ovulating? Well, you have to assess your PDG levels. So, as in a normal healthy cycle, you're going to have your LH surge, which will trigger ovulation for you to release the egg. Some women can feel their LH surge, and I feel it when I'm ovulating. I'm like, oh, I'm releasing an egg. Moment of pain a little bit. You're kind of bracing yourself. And that is your body releasing that egg. However, about 3 to 4 days afterwards, you're going to have a rise in PDG. That confirms that you ovulated. PDG is the progesterone hormone metabolite. That confirms that you completed a full cycle. You're good to go. With PCOS and with some women, they don't have that PDG rise, which means you did not actually ovulate that cycle.
Okay.
You only have a PDG rise if you actually ovulated. So I have my clients track their PDG, and that's what I'm actually waiting for, not the LH, because the LH can just prompts you to ovulate. I need to know if your body responded by releasing the egg.
If you do an ovulation kit, I think it only tracks LH surge.
LH,
So
it
it's
doesn't
not going to
exactly.
give you. Okay, it's not going to give you an
Yes,
answer.
I don't too much care about, I want the LH surge because I want to know that your body is saying start, but I need to know you completed the process. That's PDG. It might take 7 even to 10 days for some people. They can have a very long luteal phase. And in PCOS, you might hear the phrase phase defect, which means that they don't have that PDG rise. And some people will prescribe progesterone at this time to help support proper ovulation and help you complete the process. It's very, again, person to person, but I personally use the Anido, and that's what I use in my practice with my clients. I give them that because it helps to measure all your key hormones, estrogen, FSH, LH, and more importantly, PDG, to help confirm when you ovulated. And for some people, confirm that you released 2 eggs and had 2 LH surges. And then we're extra happy because it could be twins this month. I really am heavy on tracking. So I track with my devices. You might see some PDG test strips. I'm not as fond of those personally because I like to see more data. But essentially, if you are looking to confirm that you actually ovulated that cycle, LH is not enough. It's just starting the conversation. I need to know that you completed the process.
That's good to know. So I just wanted to touch on something else. When we talk about genetics, we have to also talk about lifestyle.
Yeah,
So we also
yeah,
touched on epigenetics and how lifestyle,
yeah,
environment, and nutrition really can affect the expression of those genes. So I
yeah,
came across another book, and you probably know this one too. It's by Colette Harris, PCOS and Your Fertility. And in the
yeah,
book, they talk about basically there's a lot of emphasis on lifestyle and safe care. So, in your practice, how much of a difference can stress management, nutrition, sleep quality even make for
yeah.
someone with PCOS who's trying to conceive?
It's night and day, honestly. In terms of managing the weight, in terms of managing the insulin resistance, you can turn around in a number of weeks with just lifestyle modifications. The important thing I always say is number one, we are walking into this new life. So we don't want to shock your system and do any crazy diets and things that you can't maintain. We're building a new body, we're building a healthier body for you and for your baby. And I would say number two, having the right lifestyle modifications and supplementation on board. Not every supplement is for everybody. Not every lifestyle change is for everybody. It has to be individualized to what you can do consistently, and what your goals are personally. Clients with like high cholesterol, for example, I'm going to be pushing heavy on fish oil compared to a person who does not necessarily have that because I want to help you better regulate your cholesterol internally. That can be done in combination with your current medications, or if you want to try lifestyle interventions first, I will collaborate with you and your PCP, OBG, your RE, whoever, because I just need to get you across the line. I don't actually care who else is on the team with us, and just to make sure that we are hitting the problem from all angles.
You touched on dieting, and that's an important topic. A lot of women who are trying to
Yeah,
conceive, I know, are
yeah,
doing everything possible, taking so much on their shoulders,
yeah,
and oftentimes they starve themselves. They go into all of the different trendy diets, gluten free, soy free, this fat free.
yeah,
What do you think about
yeah.
this?
All you need to know, Mediterranean, what's that mean? Fish, seafood, protein, fiber. What that means to you is up to you and your lifestyle, your culture, your family, right? But I'm heavy on fish, seafood, protein, fiber, because those things will help regulate your hormones the best. All the other stuff, whether you're dairy free, dairy plus, you're cutting out gluten, you're cutting, sure, if you want to. However, we can get too restrictive and begin to cut out important macro and micronutrients that we do need. As long as the foundation of your diet is healthy proteins, healthy fats, and fiber, the rest doesn't really matter too much, if I'm being honest with you, and can be customized to fit your lifestyle preference and your cultural preference. I tried to have a client encouraging them to increase their fiber. I said nothing white. So the husband went out and he just said, I'm not going to eat any bread, any carbs. And I was like, that's not what I said. I'm trying to show good fibers, good carbs, and bad. So we don't need to overcorrect. We just need to implement things that still hit our fiber quota for the day, but that we're going to enjoy and that we're going to be able to maintain. So I'm kind of against heavily restrictive diets and extreme fad diets. If it has a name to it, I generally don't care for them because they're fatty and trendy, and those don't last,
I,
in my
I
opinion.
agree with you. There are also a lot of discussions circulating on the internet suggesting that PCOS might be related to chronic tension and stress patterns, for example,
Mm,
clenching or being very type A personality rather
mm,
than purely
mm.
metabolic issues. Is there any evidence that PCOS can be influenced by stress physiology or nervous system patterns? And how might it present in ways that aren't really strictly metabolic?
So at present, I am not aware of any clinical studies that support that. However, what I think you're also asking, is there an influence of stress, anxieties that can influence things like inflammation, influence things like the underlying like metabolic issues with PCOS? Is that about okay? I want to make sure I'm answering the appropriate question. And certainly so. All those things are factors that can contribute to how it will manifest. Stress definitely being one of them. Personally, and this is a bit of the holistic side coming out of me, I really adhere to the teachings of Dr. Gabor Mate. I've read a lot of his books, and he talks about the interconnection of the spiritual, the mental with the physical, and how the things you're describing, whether it's tensions, clenching, those are often manifestations of deeper seated pains and traumas, and how those things can manifest as illness in our bodies. I do strongly believe in that, honestly, and I try to do some spiritual work with clients as well and talking about where that pain is coming from, where those tension points are coming from. I often deal with women. I had a client recently who's having infertility after her first child. And I said, well, something I've noticed with you is that you do a lot of masking. You are quite tense and stressed, but when your husband is in the room and when we talk and when you're at work, everything is kosher, everything is happy, everything is good. You need to release some of that. And I think in part, not only to welcome your next child into your body, but also for your own healing. You're not going to be able to address, one of her pain points was weight, for example, when you're constantly tensed up and having to pretend. So I tried to guide clients through the mental work that is part of healing because I do believe in that interconnection of the soul and the body. And I do not think we can kind of isolate the two personally. That is not how my practice is set up. So while I cannot point to any scientific study per se that says if you're tense a lot, you will have PCOS or it'll worsen your PCOS, I do understand how stress and pressure can worsen symptoms for a number of health outcomes, including PCOS.
Makes total sense.
Oh.
I There's a lot of also floating around in the fertility world about different kind of supplements and compounds. Like CoQ10 is a well-known inositol. There's also others like NAD boosters,
Yeah.
methylene blue. Can I walk through several and maybe just give me a quick yes or no? Would you recommend that generally? Is it
Okay.
scientifically proven or not really? So we'll start with
Okay,
the
let's
obvious
try.
one, CoQ10.
So it's well studied. It cannot hurt. So it's kind of a sure, let's add it on board. I typically will encourage clients to add that one to their regimen.
What about PQQ?
There's some interesting early data. It might help with mitochondrial support, but it's not one of the staples. Leave it, take it or leave it.
Shilajit?
It's used traditionally, I believe, but there's very limited data in terms of fertility support. It seems to be more hype right now than actually evidence based.
Ma- What about macaroon?
This one is interesting because you will see some gossip about the libido support. I think that might be a little more placebo effect than actually but I mean, sex is part of fertility. So if it gets you going, then sure.
Even if it's just placebo, if it's working, right?
Honestly.
How about cordyceps medicinal mushrooms?
So this can help with some stress, but there's not really much direct fertility focused support there. I would just be very careful with any like herbals or mushrooms as they're not very studied yet, to the best of my knowledge. But for the most part, it's kind of just an herbal thing that it's just kind of anecdotal information about it.
Okay. Inositol?
Very strong data for PCOS and insulin resistance. So I think it is kind of a staple for many PCOS women. I tried it a bit a year ago after I gave birth for my own insulin resistance. So that and berberine. So those are go-tos for insulin resistance and PCOS.
What about melatonin?
So promising data for egg quality, especially in women who have been told they have like diminished reserve or poor egg quality. It's for some IVF clinics actually add it to the regimen as part of your cycle of your IVF cycle with them. So I think that there's some good evidence there to show that it can provide some support.
NAC?
Great evidence for PCOS and insulin resistance. We're going to touch on a couple PCOS baddies, but we should not overstack because I don't want to over encourage. Remember, everyone, individualized, review your supplements. Don't go out and rush and get berberine, inositol, and NAC. Those are pretty good staples for PCOS.
Alpha lipoic acid.
I've seen anecdotal data that it's supportive for the metabolic issues at PCOS. Doesn't hurt.
Resveratrol?
Controversial. It's mixed evidence that there. I've seen some things that say that it helps with inflammation, but not strong data.
How about glutathione? There's a lot going on right now on social media.
There is. It's very sexy. It's very popular right now because it's an antioxidant, and that's very important if you're trying to conceive because it helps support proper egg development. It's not, again, one of those things that is not harmful. I have not seen like clinical studies necessarily that support its addition. So it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't think it would hurt.
Methylene blue?
Okay, now we're kind of entering experimental territory. I would not recommend this for fertility. It's a little too in the danger zone right now for my comfort.
Okay, and the last one, pearl powder, TCM tonics.
Okay, so traditional medicine again, but I don't see very much about fertility support. So this one is, I'd leave it, to be honest. We touched on a couple others that have a little more evidence behind them, and that'll, I think, actually get us to the goal a little more in a more structured manner.
Awesome. And to finalize, you talk a lot about personalized approach, but also how supplements are not alone, are not going to be as
Yeah,
helpful. It's about lifestyle, nutrition,
yeah.
and you have to
It's the whole
gather
picture.
exactly as much as
Yeah.
you can, but they could be helpful.
Yeah, it's a full picture. And personally, I do not discuss things that I don't do personally, whether it was on my fertility journey or my postpartum journey.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cyntia, for sharing your expertise and your wisdom with us today. I know our listeners will walk away with a deeper understanding of science and holistic care and what we need to know about PCOS and how it all comes together to support fertility. Thank you. As always, thank you for tuning in. If you found this conversation helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who might benefit. Your support helps us bring more conversations like this to you.